Republican Senator Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma. Senator, thanks so much for joining us. You have said that Kristi Noem, the Secretary of DHS, was, quote, absolutely 100% correct, unquote, in her near immediate characterization of the incident and her description of what Renee Good did as, quote, domestic terrorism. Your colleague, Senator Thom Tillis, Republican of North Carolina, notes that, quote, it was very unusual to have a senior law enforcement official to draw a conclusion about an event where the scene was still being processed. Generally speaking, law enforcement would recognize that a life was lost, that families are changed forever, the shooter's life will change forever, we're collecting video, we're trying to assess the situation, unquote. Why is deviating from what Senator Tillis enunciated there, why is that appropriate? Why not wait for an investigation before asserting what happened?
Well, Jake, I think you could go two ways, too. I mean, you played what all the Republicans said, but you didn't play what any of the Democrat lawmakers said about the ICE agents. I mean, it's true that both sides went out there quickly defending their side. The fact is that Renee Good was interfering with police activity. There's no question about that right now. There was no question at this point that she accelerated after she was given verbal commands to get out of her vehicle, and the body cam footage clearly shows, different angles from different people's phones clearly show that she accelerated straight towards the ICE agent. They had the right to defend themselves. Once she blocked the ICE agents from doing their job, they exited the vehicle, gave a verbal command, she wasn't listening, and then she purposely tries to accelerate and run over. I don't know if she purposely tried to run over the ICE agent, but there was an ICE agent positioned in front of her vehicle. She accelerated to them. At that point, that vehicle becomes a lethal weapon, and the agents had the right to defend themselves, and they did so.
I will be playing some of the comments that Democratic officials have made to Democrats later in the show, but it is also true that the Republicans, the president, the vice president, the DHS secretary, are actually in charge of the ICE agent. The ICE agent, you just asserted that the woman clearly tried to run over the guy, and then you said, at the very least, she was going forward while he was in front. I think that does illustrate the fact that this is, at the very least, a widely disputed incident full of ambiguities and interpretations. How can anyone be confident that she was trying to attack the officer instead of she was trying to flee the scene?
Fleeing the scene, it doesn't make any difference. If you accidentally run over a police officer, you still are getting charged with involuntary manslaughter. If you are accelerating at a fast rate of speed, driving your vehicle down the road, and you cause the death of a civilian, you are charged with involuntary manslaughter because you're driving your vehicle in a reckless manner. In this particular case, she purposely blocked the ICE agents. Is that disputed? No. We know she purposely blocked the ICE agents. Is it disputed that she accelerated after the ICE agents gave her a verbal command to get out of the vehicle? No. Now, did she know the ICE agent was in front of her? We don't know, but we do know that she accelerated and she hit the ICE agent. At that point, that vehicle is a lethal weapon, and that police officer has the right to defend themselves. It is mind-blowing to me why we are defending someone that was acting in this manner when it was clearly that she hit an ICE agent, and that's law enforcement that's enforcing our nation laws. We don't get a choice on which laws we enforce and which laws we don't enforce. Police officers are doing their job, and she was interfering in their job. If you don't want to be in harm's way, don't get in the way of police officers from doing their job.
I'm not making the case that Renee Good's protest tactics were wise or safe. The question is, did her actions warrant being killed?
Was a vehicle being used in a lethal manner? Was she accelerating towards a police officer? The answers to those are yes. And in that case, the officer has to make a split decision to protect his life. And that's exactly what he did here. It is no different than you having a gun in your hand or having a knife in your hand. That is considered a lethal weapon, and the officer has to make a split decision to protect his life and those around them's lives. And that's what this ICE officer did.
You said that she clearly hit him. I don't know that that's true. It may be true. It may not be true. It does seem that he stepped to the side and was able to avoid getting hit in a horrible way, and he was seen walking fine afterwards. Again, I'm not defending what she did. I'm just saying she didn't.
Well, what's
she
the
didn't
difference
run
in a horrible way?
Well, she didn't.
What's the difference in a horrible way or not? It's like saying, well, I didn't really shoot you completely. I just shot you in the arm, but I shot at you. It doesn't matter. The vehicle was being used in a lethal manner, and he had the right to use lethal force at that time. I mean, I've heard reports saying that, well, why didn't you just shoot the tires out? Okay, give me a break. Like, that's going to stop a vehicle.
Yeah,
it's the same thing that these people are saying. I know, but I'm just saying these reports out there. There is obviously, I mean, there's video, Jake. You can see the video. It's widely spread across the internet from different angles. That you can clearly see him being struck by the vehicle in front of the vehicle. It doesn't make any difference if he was struck or not. When he was standing in front of the vehicle and she was given verbal commands to leave the vehicle and she accelerated, at that point he doesn't have 5 seconds, 10 seconds. He has a split decision on what he can do to protect his life and those around their lives too. Remember, there's a crowd around there too. What if she accelerated out of control at that point too? But she did hit him, and he did use lethal force. And unfortunately, his life has changed. Her family's life has changed. This should have never taken place. But what we do know is the law enforcement had the right to be there to enforce the laws. She was interfering with law enforcement from doing their job, and that is a federal offense.
So it may be that she hit. I don't know. I'm waiting for the results of the investigation. But let's take a look more closely at some of the images of the shooting, as you just referenced. From the view I'm showing right now, this is the first video that we all saw. Officer Ross is obstructed when he appears to fire the first shot. You can't see because the other two ICE agents are there. But when he fires the second and third shots, he appears to be at the side of the vehicle, not in front of the vehicle, firing through her window to her left. Were the second and third shots warranted if by then he was shooting from the side and out of harm's way?
Well, that's very selective imaging that you guys are using there, because you can use a lot of different images than just that. You could also use the one where he's actually hit by the car.
I'm granting you your first. I'm granting the first shot. I'm just saying, what about the second and third?
I get that, but let's just talk about that real quick. Anybody that's been trained in law enforcement or even in military, you don't train just to shoot the one shot. You're always trained to shoot 2 or 3 shots. Typically, it's 3. It's called a triangle. 1, 2, 3 are running the buttons. 1, 2, 3 are a zipper. So everything you're trained in with muscle memory is a 3-shot go. And that is, and you can talk to any law enforcement agency you want to that's went through CLEAT certification or much higher levels of training with a weapon. So the 3-shot is a full-fledged muscle memory. However, she is still accelerating at this point when he was firing the first and second shot. It wasn't a clean stop. And so the threat was still taking place. It was still an active threat because the vehicle was still acting in a manner of a deadly weapon. And until that completely stops, he has to eliminate the threat. And unfortunately, like I said, this officer's life is turned upside down. Mrs. Good's life and her family, obviously, Mrs. Good's life is lost, but her family's life is turned upside down. It should have never taken place. But the real story is why were they even out there? They shouldn't have been out there interfering to begin with. And those that are paying for professional protesters to obstruct the justice of law enforcement, at some point, they need to start being held accountable because they're costing people their lives. And
we don't know that she was
being individuals need to be held accountable.
We don't know that she was being paid. She obviously was protesting. We don't know that she was being paid. I want to ask you, when it comes to just like what appropriate responses are for law enforcement when they're feeling threatened, you were at the Capitol on January 6, 2021. We just honored the 5th anniversary of that horrible day. On that day, more than 140 police officers were injured when that violent mob stormed the complex. President Trump ultimately pardoned all of them, more than 1,000 of the rioters, including those who physically attacked police. So using this assessment of when law enforcement can shoot, when they feel threatened, would those officers have been justified shooting dozens of the January 6 rioters who were, as we see on video, physically attacking police in ways that caused them harm?
You know, it's interesting you bring that point up because remember the Democrats went after President Trump saying that he agitated the crowd to do that when he also said that he told them to go down and peacefully demonstrate, but yet they try to pin that on President Trump. In my opinion, when you're using lethal force at all towards law enforcement, they have the right to use lethal force too if they're feeling threatened. But that goes back to my original point before you switch to that point, is George Soros, who is obviously paying these agitators and paying for these professional protests to go on. He should start being held accountable because he's costing people's lives.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad. What?
In her final seconds alive, Renee Good can be heard telling ICE agent Jonathan Ross that she has no issues with him as he walks around her car stopped in the street. ICE says Good and her wife
It'll be the same thing when you come talk to us later.
were closely following an operation. Ross has no body cam. He's using his cell phone here. Good's wife says this.
Go get yourself some lunch, good boy.
Before another agent yells for Good to get out of the car. Her wife then yells at her to go. Ross is now in front of the car as Good reverses, then drives forward. Gunfire is heard. Good's car then crashes into two others that are parked. She later dies.
Yeah, Lawrence, to give you a sense of how widespread this fraud might be, at least 62 childcare centers in Minnesota were under investigation earlier this year before all of this blew up. This is something that's been going on for over a decade now, and it often works pretty similar to the other fraud schemes that are already being investigated in Minnesota. Daycare centers will get low-income parents to enroll their kids, give the parents some kind of kickback, and sometimes they never show up again, while the owners are charging the federal government millions of dollars a year. Independent reporter Nick Shirley put the spotlight back on this problem that's been going on for years when he tried to visit several child care centers that are under investigation, and his video went viral. Here's a small bit of that.
So this is Quality Learning Center. I meant to say Quality Learning Center.
Don't open
They
up!
said they spelt learning wrong.
We're just wondering where the children are.
Who are you?
But we'd like to ask, where's the money going? Look at that. Shut us down. Where are the children at? No children inside of this daycare center.
Federal agents are now on the ground in Minneapolis going door to door to some of these businesses that are suspected of fraud. Federal prosecutors say the total fraud in Minnesota could ultimately be more than $9 billion. After Shirley's video went viral, Governor Tim Walz's office defended his handling of this growing scandal, telling Fox News the governor has worked for years to crack down on fraud and asked the state legislature for more authority to take aggressive action. He has strengthened oversight. They go on to say he is now taking steps to stop it from happening, including creating a statewide fraud prevention program. But state Republican lawmakers argue that Walz has had 7 years to address this and has done almost nothing, despite whistleblowers saying they have been sounding the alarm the entire time. Just this past hour, a group of those lawmakers said they are now calling on Walz to resign, even as he's currently running for re-election.
Been telling you about this Minnesota fraud scheme. They took all this COVID money and just wasted it. Politicians knew about it. There was no real investigation. They went after the whistleblowers. It was billions and billions of dollars. Many in the Somali community and political, leaders didn't want to criticize what was going on because they didn't want to affect their community. Well, Cash Patel is taking it a step further, saying that they have found that $250 million that are part of the fraud scheme, and he says that it's the tip of the iceberg. This is what he said in a full statement. Even before the public conversation escalated online, the FBI had certain personnel investigating resources to Minnesota to dismantle the large-scale fraud schemes, exploiting federal programs. Fraud that steals from taxpayers and robs vulnerable children will remain a top priority for the FBI in Minnesota and nationwide. To the day, the FBI believes that this is just the tip of the very large iceberg.
Critics are also asking why Congresswoman Ilhan Omar's husband reportedly purged key officer official details from his $25 million venture capital firm's website. Now, this move comes amid growing questions about the couple's wealth and possible connection to the welfare fraud. According to her latest financial disclosure in May, the couple's net worth surged 3,500% in just 1 year. It estimates now putting it anywhere from $6 million to $30 million. Their net worth went up 3,500%. How do you explain that? And then talk about the scrubbing on the website. That doesn't look good. What's Walz doing about that? Is he looking into this?
Well, certainly not. I mean, he's certainly supportive of whatever they're doing, and this is one of the other things that we need to address.
Okay, I just wanted to point out a couple things. The daycare scandal was broke over 2 weeks ago. The fraud case really broke on major media networks, but it took 4 or 5 days before CNN did any kind of expose in talking about the daycare fraud, which is $9 billion. So it's kind of interesting that the Minnesota Department of Human Services would respond 2 weeks ago, big break in the case, $9 billion, when CNN is facing criticism for coming in late only 10 days ago.
A correspondent for CNN.
We reached out to several of the daycares featured in the now viral video. Only one daycare facility answered and said they are a legitimate business.
Have you seen the videos, purporting that some of these daycares don't have kids inside?
One daycare answered and basically said, we're not committing fraud. You know who else says that they're not committing fraud? Everyone committing fraud.